The Department of Social Development Director responsible for child rights advocacy, David Chabalala, joins us now for a conversation. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Chabalala. Thanks very much for joining us here on SABC News, sir.
Good evening and good evening to our viewers. Thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome, sir. All right, so the young people are quite vocal and articulate about what they need and want. What do you make of some of the pleas that were vocalized then by these young people?
Thank you very much. I think let me start by indicating that I think as a background as to where we come from. As South Africa back then, when we have gotten into democracy, 1996 specifically, we ratified what we call the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and subsequently the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. And it's quite interesting to indicate that this was as a result of the first democratically elected president, Utata, the late Mandela, prioritized the ratification of those international and continental instruments. By virtue of that, we, of course, are taking forward the legacy wherein he has shown that he has a very special love for children. We have created a platform that we call the Nelson Mandela Children's Parliament that sits, like Minister has said, on biannual basis. We have children that are coming from provinces, and of course, it's not just a sitting just to while away time. We have seen this happening in such a way that whatever they are raising has an impact, because government takes over these issues in the form of what we get the cabinet approving. That is a National Plan of Action for Children, which is a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a plan that we really are proud, that encourages that children must express their views, including taking care of issues affecting them.
Yeah, Mr. Chabalala, the children really raised very much top of the agenda the issue of teenage pregnancy, alcohol abuse of children as some of the main issues that affect them. So you're talking about dealing with these issues and not just having some sort of a talk shop. So what is the plan then on government side when the teenage pregnancies? I mean, it's happening at an alarming rate, as I'm sure you would be aware. But they've also called for legislation to be looked at when it comes to alcohol and certainly the abuse of children. So, I mean, from this point, what then happens to what was expressed today?
Thank you very much for that question. I think, yes, government has got a responsibility, and of course, government will continue to advocate against those social ills. But over and above that, we have laws that really needs to be enforced. I mean, I can give an example with regard to the consumption of alcohol. There's an age limit. I mean, children are not supposed to be buying and getting into this, areas where
I think Director, that the rules are there, the laws are there, but the issue, and I think this is perhaps what these youngsters were raising quite articulately there, is the issue of implementation of these many laws. I mean, we have all the laws, but very little of the justice if you look at how things are in South Africa. And I think that is the fundamental issue that the young people were trying to put across.
Precisely. I think enforcement, we must admit that it's one of the limitations or challenges that we are facing, across the board in South Africa. But I think it's more important to be honest that enforcement is not just a one-way process. We need, inclusion or participation by organs of civil society, and of course, members of different communities. More importantly, families are important. I've got an example that I can give, and of course, it's quite, an unfortunate situation. The tragedy that happened in the Eastern Cape, where we are, in the Enyobeni Tavern. We have learned that, this parent was watching TV with the family. Then they went to bed at around about 10 o'clock. But when this thing was announced, the parents or the mother came to realize that one of the children that perished is his girl. So it's like families are also very important in this whole process.
Yeah.
So yes, I think we are strengthening our enforcement, machinery, and we are doing our best. But government on its own will never really win this battle.
The theme of the sitting was maximizing the voices of children in addressing social ills affecting them. Let's talk about the importance of, bringing in the voices of children, when it comes to addressing their own challenges. And I mean, I also feel that this shouldn't be a once-off thing, that we have this parliament and, it has all the bells and whistles, but, it doesn't translate to anything afterwards. I mean, is there any plan to kind of incorporate children's voices more so, when dealing with some of the issues that do challenge them?
Minister has made, an emphasis on the institutionalization of child participation, meaning we would really aspire to see children participating from their different localities. And of course, I must also emphasize that this is not just a process just, created out of the blue. It's something that is an obligation by virtue of the United Nations Convention, the Constitution, and other legal mechanisms. So we are very proud that our children, and I must also say that, South Africa has been, seen and observed as one of the leading or, showcasing good models of ensuring that children express their views. I can give an example, I think 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I think 2 will suffice. We had a global conference on the elimination of child labor that was hosted by South Africa in Africa for the first time. And we made sure that we coordinate children to participate. For the very first time in the history of these conferences, children were participating for the first time. They came up with resolutions. They are documented. We're in the process of having a plan of action working with the Department of Employment and Labor. And November last year, we had the second presidential summit on gender-based violence and femicide. Children were there, interacted with the president. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is work in progress, and we are very excited and very happy that children are really beginning to participate on matters affecting them. Looking back 20 years ago, this process was not there. So in anything that affects children, especially policy making, we are saying they should be involved.
All right. Mr. Chabalala, sir, thank you very much for giving us your time this evening here on SABC News. We certainly do appreciate it. David Chabalala is the Department of Social Development Director, responsible for child rights advocacy.